Today is June 26th of 2013, and we have here an ESXi 5.1 Update 1 host. So this is a Core i7 based system. I've got a solid state drive ready and the ISO file uploaded. So I'm going to go ahead and start installing Windows 8.1 Preview today. So we'll start with New Virtual Machine. Typical will work. I'm trying to keep this as simple as possible. After all, this is just a preview. You're unlikely to keep around for many months. Let's give it a name. Call it Windows 8.1, but you can't put a dot in a host name. And we could do something like this. So I like to do host name followed by a little bit about what operating system we're talking about. 34 gig is kind of enough, not really, but I'm going to have to make do. This is just a lab environment after all. We want to pick Windows 8 64-bit. Can leave that NIC alone. Later on we can try the VMX Net 3. But if there's no network available when you first start, you may have some issues. So we're going to just sidestep that trouble. Keep it simple and leave it at defaults. I like to do thin provisioning. I just have an arbitrary number of 750 gig there, but basically we're pretending we have 750 gig available, even though physically on the SSD we only have 35 gig available. That can really get us into trouble. We have to keep an eye on free space. We're only going to be using 12 to 15, maybe 18 gig on the actual hard drive, so we'll still have some to spare. It gives me a nasty warning. So that way my C drive, I don't have to worry about resizing. I have lots of elbow room, and I can always move this virtual machine to some other data store that has more room if needed. So instead of clicking Finish, I'm going to edit at this point, and then say Continue, and then point to the DVD-ROM drive, and data store ISO file, connect at power on. Make sure you do connect on power on. Browse my way to the drive. I have a folder I call ISO, and that's where the 3 gig file lives. I've only given it one CPU. You may want to tweak that, but again, in the interest of keeping this video as simple as possible, and click Finish. Okay, here's our virtual machine. Let's boot it up. Hit the power button and watch. So 2 gig of RAM, 1 CPU. Next, install now. The mouse is going to be jumpy, of course. I'll move the mouse cursor out of the way. But not for long, because I still have a license key to type in. Care of that. Okay, we click on Next. Accept the license terms. Click Next. And do Custom Install. 750 gig, that's the size drive I picked. Next. And now we simply wait. Now the mouse is no longer hostage, so I was able to move it freely right off the edge of the screen. That's nice. So if we look at our clock in the bottom right corner, you'll see it's 2:32 p.m. when we really got started with this install on a solid state drive. I'll leave this recording going, but I'll probably speed up this section and mute the audio. Excellent. So we're at our desktop. What do we do? Well, before fiddling with anything, I like to just click on the desktop and realize a couple things. One is, well, the clock's a bit wacky. We'll get into that once we have tools installed. So I'm not going to worry about that quite yet. Why suffer with the weird sluggish mouse? Let's just get tools installed. So if we right click on the VM, point to guest, we say install tools. Click on the little pop-up, run the installer, say yes. I did a typical install of tools in this case. This is actually my first install under 5.1, update 1. The only prior experience I had with 8.1 preview is under VMware Workstation. So we may have a quirk or two show up here, we'll see. So tools is installed. It's going to want to reboot. It's always wanted to reboot. It's normal. Now that tools is installed, we can go and finish up here. I don't want to interrupt the video. Hang on. There we go. So let it boot. Log in. Show the desktop. Clock. Let's talk about the clock. So if we go to the adjust date and time dialog, where you can just click on the clock, go to internet time, you'll see that by default it's going to hit the internet and set the clock. I like to turn that off. The next thing I do is I go into the settings of the virtual machine, I go to the options tab, VMware tools, and I say synchronize the guest time with the host. Okay. And that's a wrap. We now have a valid install of Windows 8, and it's apparently working just fine. Generally, I don't mess around with the console view very long. I tend to set up remote desktop connection, so if we hit Windows plus X in System, we can look at remote settings and see that remote desktop is blocked by default. So if we turn that on, click OK, we can then use remote desktop connection to continue to kind of mess around with Windows 8, including just play around with the features. So thank you for watching this video of Windows 8.1 Professional Preview. Hopefully you found it helpful and encouraging that things work quite all right with ESXi 5.1. Internet's still working as well. At this point, we can tweak the driver and go with an alternative driver. We can give it more memory. There's lots of settings you might want to do as next steps, but again, those are all optional. So there we have it in about 12 and about 10 minutes, let's say, of actual work. We have a virtual machine ready. We can clone it, we can make a template out of it, we can do all those more advanced next steps if we'd like. So at this point, you can stop watching the video, or you can stay with me for some more advanced work on my next chapter on Windows 8.1 Professional Preview. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do here is take a look at Windows Update. So we'll let Windows Update do its thing. Okay, that's going to take a while. So we want to make sure we have the kind of best experience here, if possible. So we're getting the latest patches from Microsoft for whatever they felt was needed for Windows 8.1. There's also some features we can add down here. I really just want to focus on getting this thing working and making a template out of it. So I can then clone from the template and then really horse around with the one build without worrying about messing it up, because I'll have an easy ability to just peel off and make new copies from templates. So let's get into that a little bit. If we look at edit settings, we've got the devices here. We don't need access to the install CD anymore. And so we don't get any errors or any pointers to the course there as if it's in use. I like to point to client device at this point and hit OK. And now when we look at the Summary tab, you'll see only the course they are showing. Let's go back to the console. It's saying restart your PC to finish updates. That's fine. I'm going to close that. Okay, let's set up power. So we got Windows plus Q, and you'll notice it says search everywhere by default. New feature. Let's go into the power savings. Change plan settings. Put the computer to sleep on never. Turn off the display on never. And save those changes. Back in the clock. It's on the wrong time zone. So I'll just point out that they don't bother to ask you what time zone you're in. So you end up with a system in the wrong time zone. So now that's fixed as well. Now when we go to shut down, all those Windows updates we just did will get applied if they weren't already. And there they go. Now once this thing is actually powered off, that was quick, click Edit Settings. The network adapter, I'm going to remove the E1000, and I'm going to add the MXNet 3. It'll give me a little bit of a speed boost. I'm also going to add a second processor core. Looks like the video card is given very few resources. Let's go with Auto Detect and enable 3D. Click OK. Okay, so we've beefed up to 2 CPUs now. Right here, 2 CPUs, right? And we've detached an ISO file, CD, which we no longer need. And we've changed the network adapter. So when Windows comes back up here, it'll have a little more horsepower, and it'll have a new network adapter. Oops, there we go. Okay, now we're back. We hit Windows plus X again. Go to System. Back to Windows Update. Let's see if it's really done. Excellent. How about if we hit Windows plus Q and type in Defender? Let's see what the scoop is there. See that? The definitions are updated. So far this beta is looking pretty slick, handling those little details. You'll see VMware tools here hidden in the tray. Okay. We're ready to shut it down. We can do it from there. And at that point, if you have vSphere client and a vCenter server, which is a free appliance you can get from VMware, that vCenter server will let you do fancier stuff like clone or create a template out of this virtual machine you just made. So again, this part of the video is intended to be a little more advanced for folks that have taken the time to set this up. So we can right click and take a look at our options here. Power off, and so forth. Migrate, clone, and template. So convert to template sounds good to me. So if we go to host and clusters, VMs and templates, we have a nice comprehensive view of all my stuff. Actually, it's only about half of my lab. What are we looking for? We're looking for the 8.1 build we just made, right? And here it says mark machine as template. Here's the target name. Appears it just really has not shown yet. Okay, it's under discovered virtual machines, that's right. So we can drag it here right alongside my other friends. Drag it out to the data center. Deploy virtual machine from the template, Windows 8.1, VM1. That's better, huh? Okay, we need a data store with some room. And it's time to go back to my second tier of storage, my RAID array or solid state drive that's on a SATA 2 bus, which is definitely speed limiting. But, you know, it'll work. Yeah, let's put on that one. So we did thin provisioning, so it's same format as host, do not customize, and we can go ahead and power that on. Finish. So if we go back to the view you might be more used to, hosts and clusters, you'll see templates disappear, but this new virtual machine will show. And it'll actually just start booting once it's done with the cloning, copying process that's going on of the rather large file. Let's see how large it really is. So the Windows 8.1 VM1, it's probably not going to let us look at much because it's still in the middle of copying it, right? That's fine. Let's just go over to configuration, storage. We know we're copying from this drive, so the source, the template, is right here. And there's the size. So it looks like almost 10 gig total. Okay, so that answers that question. How big is an installation of Windows 8.1 preview? About 9.5 gig on your hard drive when you do thin provisioning. Okay, you can't look at performance data because it's still underway. But if we go up to the host level and click performance, as this copy operation is going, oh, it just finished. We're just a little late. Oh well. Anyhow, you'd actually see, you know, as it moved data around, you'd see the disk right here. It was rather busy a moment ago. So now we head back here and over to console. We should see this thing booting up automatically. And we did. And it's booted. And it's called the old name. So now let's check in on its network settings. What do you think we'll find? It's on the internet. That's good. If we right click and say open network and sharing settings, It says Ethernet 2. What is Ethernet 2? 10 gig. So that's the new optimized driver. So that was handled rather gracefully. That is nice. What else do we want to do though? How about if we hit Windows plus X? Whoops. Let's hit, there it is, our network driver. Okay. Right, but what I really want to do is hit Windows plus X, and then hit System, and now change settings for the computer name. And to rename the computer, I'm going to add that 1 afterward, right? So we don't have duplicate names in the network as I clone away and make other copies of this virtual machine. Restart now. So that's really everything I wanted to show you on this look. If we look at SolarWinds VM Monitor, you can see it just sees it as Windows 8. It doesn't know Windows 8.1. But it can, see it's using how much memory? 1.6 out of 2 gig, for instance, when it first boots. One other little touch you can do if you don't want to log in, because it's just a lab environment where you're kicking the tires, you can hit Windows plus R key, netpl wiz.exe, hit enter. Okay, and we can of course reboot from here too. So we can restart a guest. Let's just make sure VMware Tools is working well with 8.1. Sure seems to be. And if you look here, you'll see it booted rather quickly. If we look at the summary tab, you'll see the IP address, 139. So let's go ahead and connect with a remote desktop connection. And then we're done really. 139, okay. Let's see. Let's connect. Don't ask me again. Yes. And ta-da! Nice high color density, color depth. Everything looks great. And we are now ready to play around with Windows 8.1 safely in an ESXi 5.1 Update 1 environment. Hopefully you found this video helpful. Please consider subscribing to the Tinker Try channel on YouTube or following me over at tinkertry.com. All little icons are in the upper right corner. Good night.